Hey everyone, I know we just finished Six Degrees of Separation, at least the reading, and I wanted to go over some final thoughts of the book. Um, so the first one, summarize the ending in 3 to 5 sentences. Do you think it was a fitting ending for all the characters? The last part of that, what is your reaction? I'll just leave to you. But the ending, we see what happens with Rick and Elizabeth and their tragic end. We see what happens between Paul and Wisa and their big um, conversation about kind of what Paul wanted, why did he do it, things like that. And we see more of Wisa and her kind of feeling sorry for Paul and wanting to, legitimately take him in even after having been scammed. So, do you think it was a fitting ending for all the characters? And we'll go into that a little bit. Um, some of the ending is ambiguous, and so, well, even that ambiguity is fitting as well. So, number two, what do you think ultimately happened to Paul? Do you think he hung himself like uh, Wisa kind of opines? Or do you think he survived as Flan is sure he did? Um, Obviously, we got the ending, which is very focused on Wisa and having her changed and kind of evolved from this. Um, she hears that at Rikers Island there was a young African American male who hangs himself with a shirt. Um, Wisa questions whether it was a pink shirt, and my pink shirt is a prop, basically. I intend to put this on and wear this for this one. Um, the pink shirt is kind of a symbol of uh, Paul to some degree. Well, pink is often used as a color of the gay community, and so having Paul in the pink shirt kind of expresses an aspect of his character that is not otherwise expressed. Um, let's see. Where am I? Yeah, I mean there's kind of arguments for the fact that he passed away and arguments that he survived. Um, it's certainly possible that he would have maybe scammed his way out on good behavior or whatever else. Um, and this is kind of a creepy thing, if you've done the homework, if you've done the research, you'll know that Paul is based on a real life person named David Hampton. Um, 6 Degrees of Separation, the play, was written in, or at least it was released and officially published in 1990, wherein Paul quite possibly commits suicide while in prison. 13 years later, in 2003, David Hampton, while in prison, commits suicide. So there's a case of life imitating art, kind of macabre, but that's kind of what happens. I don't think John Gare intended to be so to be kind of a fortune teller in that sense, or kind of a prophet in that way of telling the future. I think kind of going back to number two and or number one and number two, uh, it's fitting that we don't know what happened to Paul. Um, Primarily because, and again, this is the structure, this is the narrative device, things like that. We don't know what happened to him. we don't know how his story ended because we really didn't know anything about him anyway. So we don't know who he is. The characters don't know who he is. They don't really know. Well, the audience knows, but you know, Flan and Weesa, Dr. Fineberry, Larkin, and Kitty um, don't know, who he is, where he came from, how he started, things like that. And so there's a tremendous amount of mystery with Paul. And so it's again fitting that his ending be just as mysterious. Um, that's assuming you believe, well, either one. I know I've gotten a lot of people with their reading journals saying they think Paul hung himself. Some think that he may have survived, and others were just, they don't know. um, so again, a mysterious end is somehow appropriate to a mysterious character. Um, Good. So again, what do you think ultimately happened to Paul? It's a bit of a trick question. We're not supposed to know, but you can still kind of have your ideas. What are the themes of the play? Now, the most obvious one is based from the title, Six Degrees of Separation. It's this idea that implies a great deal of connectedness. Um, Now, I don't know how much I want to say about Six Degrees of Separation versus Catcher in the Rye, since obviously Paul brings up Catcher in the Rye. Um, so I won't yet. I will come back to Six Degrees once we're talking about Catcher in the Rye. But so one of the themes, Six Degrees, we're all connected, things like that. There's also statements and even messages about racism in there, class, wealth, money, poverty, things like that. Social class, that's another one. Some people have it, some people don't. The ones that don't are the ones, trying to get there. And certainly embodied by Paul, if you come from what we see is almost nothing. Again, we see Paul on a rainy day, kind of hiding out in an alleyway. Just in that little brief scene where Trent firstly meets Paul. He's in basically, what was it, like a t-shirt, jeans, and shoes, and just kind of standing in an alleyway. Um, so it's Paul embodies this idea that if you come from nothing, let's say it takes more imagination to kind of create wealth, to have that social status, and to move from one to the next. And there's a lot of race in there. There's a lot of you can even go into, certainly in the 80s, which some of you pointed out in the reading journals, that especially gay men were not nearly as accepted in the 80s than they are now. Part of that is due to the AIDS crisis that was going on during the time. Um, but yeah, so there's race, there's sexuality, social class, poverty and wealth, things like that. Those are all kind of uh, aspects of this. Um, Good. So that was number three. Number four, do the main characters change? Usually in our films and our plays and entertainment in general, we tend to like to have at least some characters go through a change, to go through some sort of hardship, learn something, and come out for the better. Um, Again, not every character will do that, but a lot of times they will, especially in things that we call character driven, meaning it's the character of the characters in there, um, that we want to see become conflicted and then not just change but grow better. So in this case, do the main characters change? For this question, focus on Flan, Wisa, and Paul. Um, so this is kind of interesting. We certainly see that Flan pretty much does not change at all. Um, if anything, I think Flan becomes more cynical, um, maybe less likely to help someone in need, as they did with Paul. This is a case of what, once bitten, twice shy, as the saying goes. He was nice to someone, he got, burned by it, and so now most likely he won't do that again. Wisa, of course, is the most obvious and the biggest change. Um, and well, I'll put it this way. If most of us, I think, were scammed or taken advantage of, like Flan and Wisa were, I think most of us would certainly react as Flan did. Um, you know, angry, wanting to get kind of justice or revenge, maybe, on the person who scammed us. Wisa, on the other hand, becomes very empathetic. We see that in that last conversation on the phone. Um, Wisa does still reach out to Paul, does uh, kind of is concerned about Paul, is concerned about what he's doing and what's next for him when faced with the prospect of going to jail. Um, she does want to protect him. She does say once you get out of prison, you can learn the family business. Um, and so there's that very different uh, Wisa at the end than at the beginning. Although we see those clues. I think I said this in one of the I think the first video that I did of the discussion questions. Remember when Paul was when came in, he had the injury, and Flan said his shirt's bleeding. Wisa corrects him with he's bleeding. So again, Flan is paying attention to the material things. Not that he had the pink shirt, but he's looking at the shirt. He's concerned that the shirt is ruined. And Wisa, just in that one little line, is saying, no, no, there's a human being here and he is hurt. Um, so, again, showing that difference there. And even between the two, like I kind of mentioned in one of the announcements, we'll be seeing uh, essentially, it's not a filmed version of the play, it's a movie version of the play, um, which I'm getting into almost semantic things, but basically somebody made a movie out of the play, so it's a little different. You'll definitely see things more obviously in the movie version than in just reading the play. In fact, one of the things that will be much more obvious that the filmmakers did was they made Flan and Wisa's ending a little more obvious. Um, in the book, we don't really see or know what happens between Flan and Wisa. The filmmakers actually make a statement um, of what that relationship actually continues on as. Um, so the next main character of which characters change, Paul. Um, this one's kind of tricky because if you read uh, or have read the homework and the research and everything else, you'll know that David Hampton pretty much never stopped. Um, Never stopped with the scams and continued through the 80s, through the 90s, up until he was imprisoned. Um, Again, as Paul is a mystery, we don't know what happened to him after this, so we don't really know if he changed. I would almost say no, he hasn't changed. At least he doesn't within the book. And that the reason for that, the one piece of dialogue, um, when he's on the phone with Wisa and he's, saying, "Oh, I could learn it, all the karate parts, and so on and so forth." Um, and Wisa basically just says, "Tell me, what is your name?" Um, the one piece of honesty that she requests, he still couldn't muster up. Um, of course, when Wisa says, "What is your real name?" uh, Paul responds with Poitier Kittredge, which of course is not true. Um, so lying all the way to the end, continuing the scam. And again, I foreshadowed this a little bit with the uh, second grade art teacher. Doesn't know, Flan was saying, why are all of your art students geniuses? And she knows, and she says, the teacher says, I know when to basically get them to stop. I take it away from them. Paul was never able to stop or take the scam away from him. And that's the reason why he ends up in jail. That's why Wisa could never really protect him. Um, and that's why the ending for Paul, at least, is up in the air at the very least. Um, so yeah, that's the ending. That's our characters. Like I said, we will be watching a kind of live version of, or a acted out version of 6 Degrees of Separation, just so you kind of get this picture in your head. Paul, in one of his first really kind of starring roles, um, Paul is played by Will Smith. Um, Flan is uh, the actor's name is Donald Sutherland. Trying to think what he was in The Undoing most recently. I think one of his more famous roles as of recently was President Snow from the Hunger Games. Um, and then let's see. Oh, in the beginning we have Jeffrey, who is Ian McKellen. He's played a bunch of different things, um, including Gandalf and Magneto and uh, several other roles. So if you want, you can think about those actors in those roles saying the lines, things like that. But like I said, you'll be watching the video. Hopefully, it will illuminate some things, um, as actual visuals do help. You'll see the what is it? Oh, the edits, basically. The scene changes much more clear when you have, much more of a setting and environment and other characters and things like that. It'll still be a little jarring, but it won't be as difficult to watch as it is to read. So that's it. That's it for 6 Degrees of Separation. Um, you've got the movie to watch today. And I think that is just about it. So hopefully you enjoyed 6 Degrees of Separation. And that's it. I will see you online. Bye bye.